well, good morning to the Speed Traveler F1 preview. This is an exciting morning, Charlie. And, I should do a quick round of introductions. I'm Chris Evertson. This is Charlie Frank. And we have our special guest, Austin Haldeman. I'm going to blow it. You got to tell Haldeman. See, I knew I was going to blow that. I keep calling you Mr. Ricola. I don't know why that is. But we're here at the Motor Rent showroom, and Charlie, this is kind of going to be a fun show, I think.
Yeah, it's nice to get out of the studio, isn't it? And be somewhere. And Austin invited us here. It's a really cool facility, as you can see. There's Lamborghinis and stuff in the background. We got an Aston Martin right here. And it was so great. We talked a little bit about this show last week on the Speed Traveler Roadshow. Not an F1 preview, but turns out Austin's a big F1 fan. So we're going to dive into F1 in a minute. But Austin, you want to tell us a little bit about Motor Rent and what you guys do here?
Yeah, so we're an exotic dealer here in Los Angeles. We set up here more of like a nationwide white glove delivery service. So most of our clients are sight unseen. We have a 5-day, 250-mile return policy. No one really does that for these kind of cars. But we do everything here. We buy, we sell, we consign, we service. We have a full service facility across the street as well, and then we ship nationwide. So kind of a one-stop shop for everything that you need. We also have some in-house PPF guys, detailers, modifications. So really, we can also service, all different types of cars. So we, come here, we can do all your cars at once. And
that's so fantastic.
Yeah.
And if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find Moto Rent?
Yeah, just on the website. You can go to motorrent.com. That's probably the easiest way. Our contact information's on there. Or just Austin at Motor Rent. That's my email.
Perfect. And then we're here at the showroom, the Motor Rent showroom, and this is your first, if I'm not mistaken, the first Cars and Coffee event you've done.
Yeah, first event today. Yeah.
And in perfect Southern California form, we had torrential rain.
Yeah, exactly.
Torrential rain. And I'm so impressed with Southern Californians with really nice cars coming to your event. That's a level of respect that I think people have for you and what you do to get them to come out here.
We thank everyone for coming out. Yeah, it was raining pretty good last night and this morning. And even a week ago, we were looking for the weather, and it was like Saturday rain. Like, and it's never right.
Right. Never rains in Southern California.
And then, of course, the one time it is right.
So I'm curious how you got into this business. You told us a little bit about your past. You worked for HPD, which I love, and that's Honda Performance Development. But how'd you come up with this idea, and when did you guys start?
Yeah, so I've always been a car guy my whole life, ever since I was a little kid, watching Top Gear growing up, watching all that, and
right.
F1 as well, and then studied mechanical engineering, mathematics, and then did the Formula SAE team. So we built the race cars in college. I actually started that at my college, which was cool. Competed 2 years in that, and then got recruited by HPD, the manufacturing. So I was building the engines for IndyCar, F1. I mean, not F1, anything. Racing Honda North America.
Right, IMSA was it at the time?
NSX GT3,
right, okay.
DPI prototype, all that stuff. And then ended up doing some consulting work, and I was like, I need to get back to cars. So I ended up meeting with David, my business partner. He has a lot of experience working at Edmunds pricing, CarMax, corporate strategy there. And we kind of came together with this idea to have this kind of like online white glove service for these exotics that no one really has. So it's kind of like a CarMax, in theory, sort of for the high end.
So even someone in Southern California, they can buy a car like the beautiful Aston Martin, and it'll show up in a trailer, or they have to come down here?
No,
amazing.
Ship,
Well, I got to add to that because I was just outside as we're getting ready, and I saw the hauler coming in, and cars were coming off, and cars were going back on, and some beautiful cars. Yeah. And it is truly the white glove treatment. I mean, even in the weather we're having, they're still treating it. Every car, they white gloves, literally, and they're done pushing. They wipe it down real quick. I mean, it's really
that car came from Florida. We just shipped that. SLS is going to Ohio, shipping out on Monday.
Nice.
That Urus is actually getting shipped to Atlanta and then out to Africa.
Wow.
So it's getting exported to Africa. So, it's not even just the U.S. We're really getting to reach out to the whole world.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Of all the cars that you've had, I'll make it a little easier. The cars that are in your showroom today, do you have a favorite?
My favorite's not here today.
It's not here.
It's not here. No, it's the GT3, the Porsches.
Okay.
GT3 RS, that's... And 600 LT Spider. Those are like my two cars that we've had through here. I'm always a GT3 guy. All the GT3s. We just had a 99604 GT3 we just sold. Absolutely gorgeous. We had that one on consignment, so we sold that for one of our customers. And then the RSs are just can't beat them.
No,
they're
for the stuff that I like, for the hardcore driving, and getting to the track or getting through canyons and just being able to drive all day and not have any issues. Can't beat the GT.
It is hard to beat that. You do have quite a few Lamborghinis. So
I mean, the Aventadors are. I was talking to somebody yesterday about it. It was like, how do you like the Aventadors? And I was like, well, when you have an Aventador itch, there's nothing else to scratch it.
Right.
Like, it's its own thing. The V12, the single clutch, you got to go with the Roadster on those. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's the king of the supercars for a reason, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a unique driving experience all the way around. But
Well, I see you got your F1 jacket
Yeah,
on. You
I
ready
do.
to
I do,
talk
yeah.
a little F1? And then at the end, we're going to do our predictions, which so far have been pretty bad.
Well, because honestly, we've been kind of picking a little
picking
bit.
number one's easy.
No,
Yeah, picking
no,
it
but
really is.
we've been trying to not pick number one. And then
Yeah.
one week I felt like picking number one. And that's the week he went out. So in Australia.
But that's because of you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all your fault.
Yeah.
But
I scored good points that weekend.
it's been a crazy start to the Formula One season. I mean, Max is again doing what Max has done, and he's been blowing doors on everyone except for obviously Australia. They had some issues there.
Yeah.
But how great is Carlos Sainz doing?
Oh, it's unbelievable what Carlos Sainz has been doing. For the driver that's losing his seat because they prefer Charles Leclerc, who's an amazing driver, Carlos Sainz has outdriven Charles Leclerc at every race he's entered.
This year,
Agreed. This year, yeah.
He's trying to show that hey, you picked the wrong guy.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's even with
Yeah.
saying that he still outdrove him in Japan last
Yeah.
week,
Yeah.
even though I think Charles Perez really did get the drive of the day.
Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc, I
Yeah,
apologize. Charles Leclerc did get the drive of the day, in my mind, with that alternative strategy that he made work. The Mercedes has tried to do the same thing, and it didn't work for them at all.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that Charles Leclerc is a bad driver. I'm just saying
No,
that
he's
Carlos
great,
Sainz
yeah.
is outdriving him at this time.
Yeah, Sainz has been in 3 races this year and been on the podium all 3 times.
Yep.
So he's gunning for a seat. And we were just talking off camera about where you thought he was going to
Yeah.
go next year, and you're pretty
Yeah.
convinced he's going to Red Bull.
I think he's going to Red Bull. I've thought that for the last few months now. Even when there was some talks about that, I'm like, he's going to Red Bull. Because, Perez there, he's kind of at the end of his rope.
His contract's up this year.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think, he just hasn't been performing how Red Bull has. Although this season he's stepped it up a bit, I still think he's out of there. And Sainz is the clear choice, I think.
I would agree with that. I mean, if Red Bull were to pick up another driver to replace Perez, I would absolutely agree that Carlos Sainz is the driver for that seat.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, that in the coming year, next year, so there's going to be an engine change? And
Yeah.
I think one of the big issues for Alonso really being firm on staying with Aston Martin is that they're going to get the Honda power plant,
Yeah.
which has been underneath the Red Bull cars for many, many years. And next year
Yeah.
they're moving to the Ford power plant.
It's going to be interesting. Changing power plants is no small thing.
Yeah, and you would know. You were in that business.
Yeah, I went HPD when I was doing the engines there. But yeah, I mean, Red Bull, though, seems to have a good team behind them of engineers, so they always seem to make things work. I mean, with the new car change the last few years, I mean, they really perfected that over everybody else. And
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it necessarily is not just the power, but the rest of the car. So it's gonna be interesting for sure. I mean, next year's gonna be crazy. I mean, you have a lot of drivers, contracts moving around. You're gonna have these new engines, these new power plants, which is why we love F1, right? I mean,
Yeah.
things change all the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dynamics between all that. Whereas sometimes the Indy car, there's more stock car. It's gonna be very similar.
Right.
But no, F1. I mean, there's the drivers, there's each race, and then there's all the behind the scenes stuff too. So. It's going to be interesting, but ultimately I think Red Bull has the team and the people there to be able to
Yeah.
make
Red
it
Bull's
work.
absolutely
Yeah.
shown the ability
They-
to adapt
So-
to changing circumstances.
I do have to say, though, I'm not 100% sure. I like Carlos Sainz, and I would love to see him in Red Bull. I'm just not 100% sure that Max is going to want someone that's going to be nipping at his heels. It's kind of like the old, Schumacher, Barrichello, and Hamilton, Bottas, where there's like a clear-cut number 2. And I think Max, obviously Max at the top of his game, so he's probably not going to be intimidated by anyone.
Right.
But that would be my only caveat on that is that I'm trying to think who else there would be that would
I
be a
think-
number 2 to Max.
I mean, I think it'd be good for him too. I mean, if Sainz is on his coattails pushing him, it's going to make
It's
him
gonna
better.
up his game,
It's only
yeah.
make him better. It
That's
makes
true.
The team, makes the team better, So
Yeah.
It'll make the racing better.
it'll make everything better. Yeah, I mean, it'll make it more interesting.
Even-
they'll have vying for
Even in Japan last week,
Yeah.
Perez was super close in
Yeah.
qualifying,
Yeah.
6/100.
Yeah.
Slower.
Yeah.
That's super short. I mean, that's the distance
That's
of
right.
that car, end of the lap. And so he's super close in qualifying for the first time in
Yeah.
a while. But Perez was nowhere to really be seen as far as the race was concerned. I mean, Max just walked away from him. So I would agree that, Carlos Sainz would make Max a faster driver by being on that team.
Right.
But it's, again, if I'm Max, I don't know that I want Carlos Sainz.
No, I don't know. Carlos has been looking really good.
Yeah, he has.
So.
I mean, when Charlie and I race, and whenever we race together, the battling is never more fierce than we're on the track at the same time. We're racing in the field, it's one thing, but we're on the track
and as
together.
you said, it ups everyone's game.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's talk Mercedes real quick. What do you guys think? Where do you think who's going to take that empty seat?
I think it's going to be one of the rookies. I think they're going to bring in a younger guy. I mean, you got Russell there who's been doing great. Younger blood, I think that they need that. They had Hamilton there for so long.
Yeah.
You get a new rookie in there.
Right.
They do need some restructuring or something that just whatever they're doing is not working right now.
Right.
Get someone younger in there, kind of trying to rebuild a little bit. It seems like they're in a rebuilding stage.
I think Perez, it's funny because Perez would love that seat, but I see him riding off into the sunset at this point.
I mean,
Unfortunately, I kind of agree with that.
It's going to be interesting to see if he gets a seat. I mean, he's a good driver.
Right.
Absolutely. In Japan, his qualifying was good.
Right.
It'll be interesting, though. I mean, there's a lot of movement. There's going to be a lot of open stuff.
There is. And with Mercedes, they've already committed to George Russell being their number one driver, and they've spent a lot of money on having Lewis Hamilton on their team, at a tune of about $55 million a year, to bring in a rookie driver that costs a fraction of that. They can put a lot of that money to R&D and developing some of the pitfalls that they've developed or encountered over the course of the past couple of years.
Right, because it's weird not seeing them, dominating or even buying,
it really is.
buying for 1 and 2 after the 7 Hamilton domination era.
Yeah.
Well, we even saw. Mercedes was very, very strong when Michael Schumacher came over at the new inception of the Mercedes.
For sure, he helped set up the whole. Worked with Adrian Newey.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting.
But getting back to Ferrari real quick, what's interesting is you just touched on it. That $55 million for Hamilton, allegedly $50 million for Leclerc. But we have another show called the Speed Traveler Roadshow where we talk mostly cars. Yeah. And you brought up a great point the other day that Ferrari, their net income for 2023 was $1.6 billion. Yeah. So they got the money.
They got the money.
So I think Hamilton loves the idea of going there and getting a Hamilton, Hamilton Ferrari.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
It's very, very possible. Ferrari's done a good job of acquiring, I'll use it in quotation marks, acquiring some real technical talent on that team. Yeah. So they're going to be even more powerful next year, I think, especially with the Honda and the Ford engines moving around, with Red Bull getting the Ford and with Aston Martin getting the Honda, they're going to be adjusting and developing, whereas Ferrari's working on their systems right now.
Yeah, I also think it'll be good for Ferrari to have a very senior driver who knows what he's doing, get some strategy in there, because some of their strategy recently is like, it's been very iffy. I would say I'm being nice right now.
You're being so nice because I've been heckling them for years.
I know.
It's like, oh wait, no one else is pitting. You know what? Why don't you guys just pit now because it makes no sense.
You know what? When Binotto was there, I agree. It's getting better with Frederick Vasseur.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely getting better.
Hamilton, though, I think if they're going to listen to him maybe a little bit.
And what's cool is Frederick Vasseur, who we love to imitate because he has a very deep, very deep French voice. Yeah. The car was crap today. But he worked with Hamilton in Formula 2. And so those guys, in 2006, I think, and 7. Gotcha. So those guys are back together, and you're exactly right. You know that he was pitching to get Hamilton. Just for what you're saying, to get that someone that really knows their stuff.
Yeah. And I don't think Ferrari needs to worry about the money thing anyways, because with Hamilton joining the team, they're going to sell $55 million in hats and shirts and jackets. What you're wearing right there is a perfect example of what Hamilton's going to do for the Ferrari brand.
As if it wasn't already big enough as it is.
Right.
Before we move on, let's talk about a couple of the other brands. McLaren, I actually thought you were wearing a McLaren hat when you first walked in.
My number 2,
okay.
It's Red Bull, McLaren. I've always been a McLaren fan too. But ever since I was a kid, even back when Vettel was at Red Bull, I've always been Red Bull, and then McLaren in the last few years. Yeah. And they were so not great for a long time.
Right.
You could have a top team and a lower team, but now they're up there. And I absolutely love both Lando and Piastri. I think are just
for sure. And Zach Brown, great,
great leader, and Zach Brown.
They've just been, and they're driving really well together. It doesn't seem like there's too much friction.
And
No.
the middle pack racing has been for the last couple of years where the best action has been.
Right.
You know, I mean, okay, the start, okay, the Red Bulls got off. Bye. Be insane. But then that battle for, call it fourth place, if you will, third, fourth, fifth, sixth place has been super exciting. You know,
Agreed.
with the McLarens, with the Aston Martins, with the Ferraris, with the Mercedes.
Beginning of last year.
Oh, it was amazing, right? It was on the podium.
It was like Alonso doing his thing. And
it was an amazing
and
start.
they lost a little pace, but they had an upgrade for Japan.
Right.
And it looked like it helped a little bit.
Good,
It's funny on race pace, you were just talking about the battle of the rest. So I'd say it's pretty clearly right now Red Bull and then Ferrari.
Yeah.
And then you could make an argument that McLaren is the third best team right now.
I would say so.
You know, Mercedes and Aston Martin fill out that top five.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd say number 3 through 5 are all pretty equal, depending on the track.
Yeah, it's a toss-up for sure.
Yeah.
But going into China now for our next Grand Prix this coming weekend, it's kind of a new thing. It's a new environment. They haven't been there in 5 years.
Right, so the cars they're driving now haven't been there.
They haven't been there, and most of the drivers are not going. They're only going to have simulator experience at best. You know, some of the drivers definitely have some muscle memory from 5 years ago, but that diminishes a little bit, and it's a much different track than where they were in Japan.
There's a big straightaway.
A couple big straightaways, and I think multiple DRS zones. In Japan, there was only one DRS zone, which made the race a little less interesting. We had 3 DRS zones in Australia the week prior, the event prior. And there were very short DRS zones, but there was a lot of action out on track front to back. It was a super exciting race. I think China, with the long straightaways and multiple DRS zones, is going to be a very, very interesting race to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those generally, a lot more passing and things like that, which everyone wants to see. I mean, it's going to be exciting because, it's a new track, so...
And Red Bull is really fast in a straight line. So that's,
And they drop that DRS.
Red Bull's fast in a straight line. Red Bull's fast in the corner,
exiting the corner.
Slow turns.
So it's going to be tough. But with that said, I think Red Bull, the aerodynamics on that car are amazing. Thanks, Adrian Newey. But I think the Ferrari might have a little more horsepower right now. So hopefully Ferrari can keep close there. Mercedes has been terrible in a straight line.
I don't know.
Shocking because that's
and Aston Martin.
Well, they have the Mercedes.
They have the Mercedes. Well, that's what made Aston Martin so fast last year, and also benefited the Williams team last year. Is the Mercedes power plant was fast in a straight line. Couldn't turn the cars for crap.
But this year it's not.
This year it's just terrible, And I feel bad for drivers like Logan Sargent, who's trying so hard. And unfortunately keeps kind of making mistakes, but it's a hard position for a driver like Logan Sargent to be in, especially what happened to him in Australia, having his chassis taken away from him. So, Williams, the Mercedes power plant needs a lot of work.
It does.
And the poor Alpine.
We were talking about that. What's the name? Snappergrass. So Otmar did a great job. What was he was at point? What's it before? Racing Point. Brought those cars to the front. I think gave Carlos Sainz, not Carlos. He gave Perez a win. And he was bringing that team along, and they fired him last year at Spa. And look what happened since. I mean, literally went straight into the ground. So, but
it's a shame.
Such a shame.
Haas has benefited a little bit from that because
you
do. I agree.
Why would they ever get rid of Gunther Steiner, the most charismatic?
Now he's going to be the best radio slideshow host.
Exactly.
Until Danny Ricciardo gets.
Right.
Yeah, that's true because he'll be a great host as well. But actually, Gunther Steiner is now the media director for the Miami Grand Prix. So he's like the spokesperson for the event. So that's
bring a little
exciting.
fun to that.
A little flair and but you got to love how Magnussen and in particular Nico Hulkenberg have been driving that last car.
They've been doing a great job.
They've been really aggressive with a car that shows pace, but just they have to do so much it eats the tires up. So.
And the car's great in qualifying. Hulkenberg is an amazing qualifier, but in the race, it just can't.
You got the P3 last year.
But they just can't quite make it happen during the race. But they're getting a little better. They're making small strides. So who have we not talked about? We haven't talked about the Cash App RB2.
That's right.
Albert.
That's right.
Albert.
RB2.
Yeah, RB2. Ricardo.
Evil Green.
Yeah.
Oh no, the white RB2, right?
Yeah.
The kick car, right?
Well, and that was the co-driver driver of the race for me last week in Japan was Yuki Tsunoda.
For sure. It is home
getting
race.
the first points for the RB team of the year and getting his first points in Formula One at his home race.
Yeah,
so
it was huge for him.
Pretty phenomenal drives. And he had to work for it. I mean, that battle for 10th place it was one of the best battles out on track as far as I'm concerned.
There's also a battle for P10 with him and Ricardo.
Yeah.
He knocked Ricardo right out.
Yeah, he did.
Um,
Man, Ricardo's been off his game a little, hasn't he?
I think he's just struggled. I think the same struggle that Vettel had with the cars getting much bigger in the hybrid era.
Right.
I think the scale of the cars has affected Danny Ricciardo's driving style more so.
Well,
than
he had
others.
one good race at Mexico City last year. I think he qualified fourth, and he was running in the top 5.
He was.
I think he ultimately finished 6th, but that was his breakout race of the year. But since then, just nothing.
Not as
But
strong as
we are running out of time, gents. So it's time to put your money where your mouth is, Austin. Actually, I'm going to let Chris go.
Yeah.
You can think for a minute.
He doesn't need to think at all. I already know.
so we
what
going
he's
2
gonna-
and 3?
Yeah, no. All right, you know what? Since you're the guest, you should go first. So pick the winner for this
Then
weekend.
I gotta go with Max.
All right. I mean, that's a wise.
I'm going to put you on a hot seat a little bit. Is it an
Yeah.
RB12?
No, I
Okay.
don't think so.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Perez, he has been driving a little bit better, but I don't know. We'll see with signs coming up. We'll see.
I know it's hard.
Yeah,
it's
the
not.
Ferraris are. Yeah.
It's hard not to pick what I think is the hottest shoe in the pack at the moment, aside from Max Verstappen with the Red Bull power plant. It's hard not to pick.
Right.
those.
And your pick, Chris?
I'm going to have to go with the El Matador too.
Oh, you took my pick. Damn it! I'm gonna have to think hard about. Well, you know
Long
what?
and hard.
I'm gonna think back to the British Grand Prix last year, and the McLarens were quite fast.
Oh.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna go Lando.
I like
would love
that.
that. That would be great.
I would gladly
Yeah.
lose to Lando.
Yeah,
in
I agree.
China.
Um,
And I think it's going to be a fair battle because, again, none of the drivers have the experience. So it's the drivers that pick up the track the fastest
Yep.
that are
Yeah,
going to
that's
do
good.
the best.
Yeah.
And the technical directors that can match that.
Yeah, but Austin, it's been great. Oh, the cookies are done.
Cookies are done.
Austin, it's been great having you on. You really know a lot about Formula One. It's so nice to have a guest on that
Yeah, and your
really
hospitality has been awesome, and
thanks for
I
having
love
me
the
on, yeah.
facility. I mean, if you ever get down here to MotoRen, check them out at motoren.com. All the great stuff. Cars and Coffee is going to be continuing here, right? You're
Yeah,
kind of
so. Yeah, either quarterly or monthly. We're seeing this as our first one, so I think we're going to shoot for monthly. We'll see.
perfect.
We'll go from there,
So what
yeah.
is this? The second is going to be the second Saturday
Second
of the month.
Sunday of the month.
Second Sunday. That's right. Sunday. It is Sunday, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I know it's weird.
All right, guys. That pretty much wraps it up. This is the Speed Traveler Formula One show. We'll see you guys next week.